Welcome back to another episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast. I would love to say this is a very special almost episode because we got Mr. John from GoFundMe, sorry, and really to give a lot of insight for nonprofits that maybe they didn't even know it kind of existed. So, John, thank you for being here. If you could kind of tell us what seat do you hold at GoFundMe, what brought you to GoFundMe, any new exciting things we should know about GoFundMe.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. My name is John Downey. I'm currently the Chief Information Security Officer at GoFundMe, and I joined. It's actually going to be 4 years next week, so been there through quite a lot. Um, I think people are typically familiar with GoFundMe. A lot of folks are familiar with it from sort of the like crisis or medical emergency side. There's a lot of people have been in the unfortunate position to have to turn to GoFundMe to support themselves in times of need. But we also, we one things we've been focusing on a lot is our support of nonprofits. So we have a GoFundMe Pro product, which is specifically there to help nonprofits fundraise. Think about nonprofits like World Central Kitchen and the Trevor Project and these in Salvation Army. Like these are like large nonprofits that we can power main donate buttons, campaign pages, lots of that stuff, and then they you can kind of pair that with on the stuff that you can do for what a nonprofit needs for like their kind of general operations, also with like peer-to-peer fundraising that people, typically would do on the GoFundMe platform. So I'm gonna, it's my birthday and I want to like go create a fundraiser for the Downey Foundation, which is a nonprofit that I'm very close to. And you just create the campaign page, and on there it'll have a little checkbox saying the funds are going directly to the Downey Foundation, and you get like the tax receipts and kind of all that operational stuff you expect.
And this is something that once you kind of create the campaign via GoFundMe, that you can kind of just embed it right into your website, so people can kind of just see it on their own website. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to do it. For GoFundMe, typically they'll be linking out to like the GoFundMe campaign page, so that way they get the like full GoFundMe experience. You go through the
Gotcha.
process, you see the thing. We have something called the GoFundMe guarantee, which we're really proud of, and we think is drives a lot of kind of trust in what we do here at GoFundMe, which is like, hey, your money is protected if you donate through GoFundMe. We want to stand behind the donation and the campaigns and that kind of stuff. But then on the GoFundMe Pro side, which is like where I'm like designing my own fundraising pages,
Mhm.
say I'm doing an event for like the 50th anniversary of the foundation being started and things like that. Like you can create like special event pages and stuff like that, and from that it takes over kind of like you would link out, and like this just becomes like another part of your website, is this sort of the GoFundMe Pro, and you can embed it in your website and do all kinds of stuff that you would typically expect.
So, like me right now, I have a gala coming up here in the next
Yeah.
couple of months. So, if I wanted to just have its own landing page, so maybe I'm plastering this at the event and people can kind of see. I think
Yeah.
what's really cool is that people can actually see, okay, if you have a target of 25,000, on how close it's actually getting. So, I think that's what's really
Yeah.
cool about it. But also, kind of that mark of approval, like, hey, this is official. Like, it is
Yep.
a official campaign. There's no one else doing it. It lets you know who the organizer is, so it's official. Because that's some of the things that I think people are scared to sometimes to donate on GoFundMe, is that, is this really legit? How do you guys kind of stay away from those that are maybe fake campaigns?
Yeah, I think what you hit on is really important. Like what we see is that in a lot of ways, if a donor comes to a foundation that they're not familiar with, or an organization they're not familiar with at all, they tend to be more likely to donate if they're in a context that they do trust, like they see it on a GoFundMe. And a lot of that comes from the associated brand and trust that comes with GoFundMe in the vetting process. That
Mhm.
hey, this is definitely going directly to this either this person or this tax exempt organization. And what we find is that like for those people, that like extra kind of seal of guarantee of like, all right, at least now I know I'm going through a trusted platform. And so for us, a lot of that goes back to we have a very rigorous internal trust and safety and risk and compliance program, whereby we vet organizations, and then for like our peer to peer, like say my cat needs surgery, like where I'm just giving to a person instead of to an organization. It's a lot of sort of making sure that there's like this is like a real person, and that they are who they say they are. Their real name is attached to it. They are going through like a real bank account and stuff like that. That's not some of the stuff you expect more on like a scammer side.
Mhm.
And then in the unfortunate events of like crisis, we see a lot of things like copycats, organization, or kind of people who pop up and like pretend to be a family member, pretend to be associated with the situation who aren't. And a lot of that is just like we got people who run it down. They, call people, email people, do lots of research, like try to figure out, make sure that there's a connection to the family. The funds can get delivered in the ways that they say they are. Everything like you read on the campaign page is as factual as we can understand it to be.
I love this. I love the GoFundMe. Obviously, we've all used GoFundMe, like you mentioned, at some point, whether it's you're starting a new project and you want some funds.
Yeah.
While there may be so many that are very sad to hear, people is losing lives, people trying to just kind of, take care of some doctor bills or whatever. Have you found anyone that just kind of humors you? I can imagine that you come across. There's just one that you just like. That was really funny. Didn't expect that one.
There we end up with a lot of sort of funny one. We do a lot of like internal testing, so like it's a lot of like, hey, so it's so and so's birthday. We want to like, buy them, and like people because we try to dog food, use our own products. So like we'll do a
Yeah.
lot of like stuff like that where it ends up being like more lighthearted, right? Where it's like, oh, we
Yeah.
want to like go raise, a few $100s to like buy someone a birthday gift, because they're our friend and like our colleague and coworker. It unfortunately, I will say like the first couple weeks of me working at GoFundMe, I honestly was crying every week because of some fundraiser I had seen in through my work that like there's a lot of tragedy in the world that ends up
Yeah.
getting aggregated through GoFundMe, a lot of stories that are really heartfelt. But you're right, there is like there's the kids soccer tournaments that they need money for travel and hotels. There's the people fundraising to like start a new business. One of my colleagues, when she left GoFundMe, wanted to start her own nonprofit, and so she wanted some seed funding to like have help get started. And she hadn't established the nonprofit yet, so it wasn't like a official tax exempt thing. But I
Yeah.
thought she was going to go off and do great things, so I contributed to help her kind of get some seed funding to get started.
That's cool. Yeah, man. Starting a nonprofit is never easy for sure. I mean, I've been down that road of what it actually looks like to go get your 501c3 and trying to get a tax preparer to help you do all these paperworks.
Oh, yeah,
It could definitely
I'm
be.
the treasurer for a nonprofit, so
Oh my
I
God. So yeah,
actually just signed our 990 yesterday.
there you go. Yeah, you get it. I mean, we've had some experiences talking about 990. Um, I had experiences where we lost the 501c3 and we had to regain it twice already.
That's
And it wasn't me leading the board, the nonprofit at this point, but it happened to us. And actually, I can actually go back. When I started my nonprofit, it happened to me. So when it happened to the organization, when I took over, I kind of had a little bit of experience on what that actually looked like. But even that, man, just funds, right? That
yeah,
cost me almost 5 grand, man, to
yeah.
get back. So I could have
Yeah,
done a
a lot of
GoFundMe on this.
audits and attestations and yeah. No, I have a friend in the security community who runs a nonprofit and they got caught up with something in COVID and like their like the numbers like got like outside of some norm and they didn't file some form correctly and they're still dealing with it now. A couple years later, 5 years later.
Oh my God, yeah. When it comes to the nonprofit world, you definitely got to be very mindful. Um, what interest like when you got into GoFundMe? I think what was the most exciting things that you were learning? I mean, we all know GoFundMe for what it is, right? We go to create these campaigns, and whenever we're in need, that's just a place. But I can imagine there was so much on the back end that you probably like, wow, I didn't know that GoFundMe is this or does this. Can you kind of explain to us, so those that may be a little bit unfamiliar with GoFundMe?
Yeah, to me, I kind of always thought of GoFundMe, especially joining kind of post COVID. I thought about it in terms of like my local coffee shop that closed during COVID, like the people who worked there wanting to support them. Like I was thinking about it in terms of like very local. And when I got here, what I hadn't realized quite, to the extent is like how global and interconnected it is. So my like second or third week of GoFundMe was the fall of Kabul in Afghanistan,
Wow.
and just how many campaigns there were to get people out to like get money in before the Taliban took over finally, like those types of things, and just like how uh fast things move and how like high stakes some things are sometimes.
Wow. When you mentioned we talk about GoFundMe, and I think I used it only on the PC. Is the mobile just as friendly?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it sort of has to be nowadays. Like, having spent a lot of time in like software development, like mobile is
Mhm.
like the way most people are interacting with stuff. So like, you have to have, if you don't have a good mobile website, then you're going to be in a bad spot. So we have been working a lot on our mobile app for GoFundMe. It has. traditionally been targeted more at what we call campaign organizers. Those are the people who are like setting up the GoFundMe's rather than like the donors, the people who are just kind of going to like donate funds to causes they care about. And we've been
Right.
trying to change that paradigm, make it more of a universal app. But today, you go to the GoFundMe website on your mobile phone, you're going to get a mobile optimized version.
Got it. But there is an app you mentioned that you can
There,
go to for those that are actually
there is an
creating.
app. Yep, there's an app to help you manage your fundraisers, post updates, kind of do all those sorts of things, manage the images, that kind of stuff. What we find is that people really engage a lot more with more visual stuff. This is just sort of things that we've kind of been figuring out about user engagement overall. Like people engage in short video content. They engage in images. They're very visual. People have been reading less and less over time. But the other thing that we find a lot is that donors really want to feel connected to the story, to what's going on. I remember very explicitly. There's a fundraiser. My first couple weeks here, there's a kid, and I had just had a kid a few years ago, so like I felt viscerally connected to this. And there was a terrible accident at the school. I won't get into it, but like I felt so bad for this family. I donated to them mostly because I wanted to continue to get updates on this kid's recovery. He was going through a lot, but recovering and seemed to be on the mend. And so every week I would get like a posted update, and it would come to my phone and my email, letting me know like, hey, there's a new update to how this person was doing.
If the Heart and Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure to guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. So, John, this is a good thing and a bad thing for you because, yeah, you're doing great things with GoFundMe, and then you're realizing, wait, I'm actually also donating my money because I'm hearing all these stories and they're just touching me. So people could really just go,
Yeah.
we talk about nonprofit, people volunteering, wanting to give back. You really can go to GoFundMe and just find a story that resonates with you. If you love dogs, if you love families, if you have kids, if you really wanted to tithe, right? Some people would just want to tithe. I think
Yeah.
this is a great place to go to, is to go to GoFundMe, help out a family in need, help out an organization in need, because John's doing it. He's part of GoFundMe, right? Like
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
no,
lo-
there's there you go there. One of the very first things will pop up is we'll use your location like roughly because we understand like where you're coming from on the internet, that kind of stuff, to help find like local fundraisers to you, right? So I'm in Chicago, no shortage of GoFundMe's in Chicago to kind of donate to. Every time there's a crisis, that's a so the flooding in Texas, the LA wildfires, so these like kind of big crises, and we're about to enter hurricane and wildfire season again. There's bound to be these again. We put up what we call a hub, which is we'll gather vetted stories, vetted families, vetted situations where we know that the funds are, to the best of our ability, are going to the right spot, and we'll put them all in one place. So you can kind of just go and look at it. It's like an aggregator of
Wow.
these situations in one spot. So you can kind of go like Texas flooding, like that when that happened a few months ago. Like there was a hub for people who were affected by that and how you could kind of go and help them directly.
What's your role again with GoFundMe? So for those that are listening.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm the Chief Information Security Officer, which is a fancy way of saying that I keep the hackers away from the money.
There you go.
Um, yeah. So my role includes like desktop IT, right? So like when someone starts, they get issued like a laptop and that kind of stuff. Like I have the team that helps the employees with that, and then we also have the team that's monitoring the platform to make sure that everything is on the up and up. One thing that I've discovered in my time here is that for every story there's another side, right? So, and for every situation, especially involving money, there's usually some like kind of tension or something going on. So, for instance, every political organization usually has like a opposite side, and so when you have a fundraiser pop up for something going on, people don't like that, and so they'll attack GoFundMe to try to take that down. And so we have a team that's basically dedicated to trying to keep the platform available for everybody, despite the fact that like sometimes people want to take us down.
Oh my God! You see, that's the backstory that we don't even know of. Like that, I guess it is true though. We're in a world where
Yeah.
there's always two sides to something, and then
And
unfortunately
even in
divided.
crisis, there's, you think like, oh, there's a terrible earthquake. No one's going to be mad about people fundraising. And then you realize like, oh, well, these countries have been, at each
Wow.
other's throats for thousands of years and don't like each other, and so therefore
Oh
the other
my.
side's going to attack them.
Oh my God. Did you always want to, obviously not into GoFundMe, but you're a CIO. Was that always kind of the idea of what you wanted to do as you look back at your career? We all leave high school, we think, we want to be doctors and we want to be lawyers or whatever. Was this always kind of your lane?
My lane, I really wanted to do like quantum computing and physics. That was like my thing. I was fascinated by this sort of world that was unseen and kind of like strangely like foreign. I realized that I was not nearly good enough at physics for it. I actually started in college in physics as like my undergrad. I was in like an honors physics program. Did not go well for me, and so I ended up switching to computer science because I was also like really into computers. I was really into security as well because I had like experimented in security and like or experimented in software and like put things out there on the internet for people to try out and like had them like ripped apart by security people. And so I was like, oh, this is like really interesting. I should learn more about it. As I went through my career, um, I initially did software engineering for a payments company for a company called Braintree, which ended up buying Venmo and was then bought by PayPal in 2013. So this is a company that processed payments for like Uber and Airbnb, these sort of like big companies that started off smaller and then got really big. Same with Braintree, like they were really small when I joined. I was the 12th engineer,
Wow.
and then it ended up getting huge. Like we had bought Venmo and then we were bought by PayPal. But in that time, I had an interest in switching more into a direct security role. So I was, doing, managing software, doing like high available integrations into the banking infrastructure. So when you process a payment, it can go like many different ways. You want to make sure it succeeds, like all these sorts of things. But I was like, oh, we should really like have like a dedicated security team. And I had a boss at the time who was like, great, that's your problem. Like he was our CTO. He was like, you just started a security team. This is like the thing you're going to do now. And I ended up going on to like lead security for all the companies PayPal had acquired. So I was traveling all over the world, doing a whole bunch of stuff, and that was like just before the pandemic, and I got like burnt out traveling so much and doing so much. I had just had a kid, and I left in January 2020. I was like, I'm done. I can't travel anymore. I need to like do a startup again. And then turns out none of us were going to travel after January 2020.
Yeah, and here you are at GoFundMe now,
Yep.
CIO.
It was actually a few years later that CTO who said this is now your problem, he recruited me to come to GoFundMe because he was the president of GoFundMe at the time.
Life, man. Life will really be life, and you just never know. As long as you show up, so that's what it looks like to just kind of speak up, right, and be an advocate for something or somebody. Doors will start to open, and I would love to know more about the nonprofit space that you're in. So, talk about the
Yeah.
nonprofit. What nonprofit are you a part of?
Yeah, so I'm on the board and I'm the treasurer of the Downey Medical Research Foundation, which is it's a U.S. nonprofit. It's actually based in Chicago, which was just like random happen chance that this is where I moved to when I joined Braintree. I'm a lifelong dystonia patient. So dystonia is a medical disorder. It's like a family of disorders where your brain, for whatever reason, we still don't necessarily know why, has a hard time working your muscles. So your motor cortex is like working your muscles, and like something is miscommunicating and causing them to kind of twist and cramp and like move against each other. Um, there's a lot of different ways that it happens. The way I have is genetic, but we also know trauma can cause it. People who go through and have like brain injuries, sometimes like the wrong medication can cause it. And then also the thing that I find really fascinating is repetitive motions of like extreme precision. So there's something called musician's dystonia. There are pitchers in baseball and golfers and sports. Anybody who's like pushing their body to the extreme in a very specific motion can
Hmm.
sometimes develop something where their brain just sort of it kind of develops a disorder whereby that motion becomes disrupted. And so you'll see it in baseball and in golf, it's called the yips. So you'll see a pitcher who just like chokes at the last second. And sometimes that's actually like an actual like a mental thing that's going on,
Hmm.
but sometimes it's dystonia. Like it's actually like a diagnosed part of dystonia. And so you see it also with like writer's cramp musicians who like all of a sudden they can't play guitar anymore because they've just like played guitar so precisely for so many years. It's a really interesting thing where it's like
Wow.
we now have like traced a lot of these back as just like it's a lot of causes that end up with the same thing, which is that like there's a breakdown in the pathways of how the signal gets from your brain to your muscles. So anyway, that's the foundation. Or that's the distorter. It's about 300,000 people in the U.S. we believe have it. So it's like on the rare side.
Hmm.
And like I said, I have a genetic form. So I have a form called, we used to call it DY21. We now call it TOR1A. I get to spend a lot of time with the scientists.
That's cool.
And it's just like there's a specific mutation in my genetics that was passed. My uncle has it. And what we find is that of the people who have it, only about 30% end up showing any kind of symptoms. So like my mom obviously had it because my maternal uncle had it. She had this genetic mutation, but she never showed any symptoms from it. So she passed on to me, and for whatever reason, I got lucky. I was one of the 30% who ended up showing the symptoms. And yeah, so I ended up developing it when the form I have tends to show up around the time of puberty. So all of a sudden, like I couldn't walk very well around age 12, 13. And I went because we had my family situation. We knew exactly what it was. My uncle was the one who kind of
Wow.
had the pain of getting diagnosed. We know also that about 70% of people who try to go in and get a diagnosis, they get like a bad diagnosis at first. It's somewhat rare. And so if you're not seeing a movement disorder specialist, they're going to misdiagnose it. Like a family practice doctor is going to have a hard time noticing exactly what it is. But my uncle went through that pain, so I didn't have to. And we knew exactly what it was. So I was able to get kind of started on the medications and things like that. And eventually I ended up having brain surgery. So in 2015, like the most effective therapy for my form of dystonia is they drop little electrodes in your brain that sort of zap the area of brain that we think the issue is in and cause it to kind of rewire itself. And so the signals go a different way. And that's the reason I can walk today.
Holy crap, John.
Yeah, I know it's
Like,
a little crazy. I'm part Android, yeah.
oh my God, I power Android. I can't. Um, so I'm guessing now it's passed on. You have a son, I think you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, I
So
have a son and a
probably
daughter,
early
yeah.
on trying to figure out everything's good.
Yeah.
How did you even? Is it just how long you been part of this organization? I guess I would ask.
Yeah, so two things there. So I joined the organization shortly before my second brain surgery. So I joined in 2017 and my second brain surgery in 2018. I had was aware of the organization for a while because my family's like strangely like interwoven and interconnected. Like in the 90s, we were part of the study that the organization had funded with some researchers in like Harvard and Boston, uh, whereby they were going out and trying to study the genetic like the genetic cause of this issue. And so what they studied our family, a bunch of, thousands of families across the country. And that study ended up going on to being the one that discovered the first genetic mutation that caused dystonia. We now know of lots, but it was the first one. It was, at the time we called it DYT1. Now we call it TOR1A. But that it was the first one, DYT1. And that genetic discovery is what led to now when I had a kid many years later in 2019 my son was born. We went through IVF and what's called pre-genetic diagnosis. So we had embryos that were screened for the DYT1 mutation, as well as some other things that they do now, and we were able to select embryos that were free of the mutation. And that was because my family was involved in the study 20 years prior, 30 years prior.
Wow.
Amazing progress there.
Yeah.
So when I joined the organization, my family was obviously very aware of it because we had kind of had this like interesting interwoven study. What ended up happening was there's this amazing woman on our board who had been on for forever because her son had dystonia, and her son was then the president. So like, there's a lot of people on the board they all have a personal connection. Either they're a patient or they have a child who's a dystonia patient, and she just like took the effort. She has this whole thing she called the committee of one, which is I'm just going to reach out to people. Like I'm going to look through the donor files, see people who donate. I'm very fortunate being a software engineer that I was able to donate some amount of money every year. And she's like, I'm just going to reach out to this person. They're in Chicago. She reached out, started a conversation with me, and pulled me in, just kind of slowly pulled me in. And so a few years later, I went to the meetings, joined the board, and yeah, and now I'm the treasurer. So she knows how to work it.
Wow, what a story. No, man, it's a cool story. So pretty much you kind of, I guess, broke the cycle in a sense because it doesn't pass on to your son.
Exactly. Yep. That's the goal. Is like right. We have the tools.
Yeah.
It's not and the thing is like IVF is not an easy process. It's
Uh,
especially hard on the mothers.
hmm.
It's not a cheap process, but it is an effective process when it's done correctly.
Correctly. Yeah. Wow, what a story in itself. I'll take you back to the GoFundMe. I'm
Yeah.
very intrigued to know, is AI living in GoFundMe? Like so many organizations implementing AI. I always say I definitely love to know where, because when it comes to like the nonprofits, it's to really take care of the admin work, right? Allow us to do more of the human to human connections and less admin, less repetitive tasks. But I would love to know how GoFundMe is actually getting into world of AI. It's not going anywhere. We're all adapting to it.
Yeah. Uh, I would say that we consider ourselves to be pretty AI forward. And I would definitely consider myself to be AI forward. I was skeptical for a long time, and I sort of came around. I think I was skeptical, just like out of a natural like sort of industry sense of like, oh, I need to be skeptical of new things that come along, and but yeah, so to answer your question, we're in our platform. There's a couple different things that are powered by AI. So if you do, one of the things that we have a lot of that we notice a lot in the platform is people will start a process, and it's really mentally taxing to ask for help. We know this. We know that asking for help is really hard, and so you'll get to a spot where it's like, oh, I need to attach an image, or I need to write this like long text description, or I need to come up with a title. And any of these barriers cause people to drop off even though they need help. They're just like not there. And sometimes sometimes these are cases where like they're they just lost their house. Sometimes it's like their best friend just lost their house. Like
Mm.
there's situations where any barrier that's in their way that we can automate with AI. We've been finding a lot of effect there, and so we have some surface areas that are better with AI that we kind of we'll help you with. We have one of the things we've been experimenting with is like a chat bot. It's kind of like a chat interface where you can kind of be like, tell us what happened, tell us what you do, and like they'll kind of like walk you through a process of like, hey, I'm an expert friend who's it's a computer, but like I'm going to help you walk through this. Like you tell me what happened, I'll tell you all. I know about all these fundraisers that have happened in the past that are kind of similar. I know like what they kind of look like, what they kind of sound like, and I'll ask you questions and like try to just create your fundraiser with you. um, Another one that we're working on is like a one-click fundraiser. So if I go to the Downey Foundation in GoFundMe and I just want to create a fundraiser for my birthday, I can just like click one button and like it creates it, selects an appropriate image, creates a description, and I can edit it all. But like it's not a lot of like I need to like go and like tweak a lot of stuff and like things like that, or I need to come up with everything from scratch. It's a jump start to getting you started.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's actually really
it,
good.
and those are all the things like that we're doing for the consumers or the people who are using it. And then we have a lot of stuff that we're doing internally, right? Software engineering is being upended by AI. Admin work that you've talked about is being upended by AI.
I just use AI in a very different way today, and I love AI. I'm just like you. I should have been doing this sooner. I started a little later, but I'm still ahead of the game, to be quite frank. And today, I'm not developing a website, even though I probably can now that I realize
Yeah,
ChatGPT helps me code.
yeah,
I had a friend, he's like, yeah, man, look what I've been able to do. I'm like, you did that? He said, yeah, ChatGPT helps me code. And I didn't even think of that because I'm not a
yeah,
coder, right? But you don't have to
yeah,
be a coder nowadays. Just talk to ChatGPT.
yeah.
So today I actually had a whole bunch of photos. So I'm developing the website for the foundation. I told you I took over a nonprofit. They have a horrible website, so I'm over here like, okay, I'm working with an editor. He kind of gave me a layout, but now we're trying to find the right photos for the right places. So I took what he gave me, I screenshotted this, and I gave ChatGPT the access to all the photos that I had for the school. And I'm giving it, hey, so this section, what does it look like? Take all the photos I gave you, which photos work best here, and it's literally giving you this photo could be here. This is what your words are gonna look like. Make sure you put a gradient, And I'm saying like this is so crazy. So I'm
Yeah.
literally just creating a to-do list for my video editor by the screenshot. It already has the photos. It's telling me what photos, and I'm just plug and play, plug and play. And I think people are just not using it the way that they should be using it. And people are using it so just basic. I even have friends sometimes when I say, "Give me what you're talking about." And on the phone, I'm having a conversation, just like I'm having with you, John, having a conversation with ChatGPT, and the output, it's in awe. People are like, "Oh my God, no wonder you get so much good information." Is what you told it, is the way that you're input it, and that's really what it is. It's data, right? John, you're in the space. If
Yeah.
you don't have good data, then you're just not
Yeah.
gonna get a good output,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
The So early on, when this like started becoming popular 2 or 3 years ago, prompt engineering is like what everybody was talking about. Like, oh, you got to prompt it with like the great, you have to come up with like the perfect prompt. And now, as someone who's like really into like the AI space, everybody's talking about the context. The prompt is important, but like, what data are you going to give it? Like, what
Yeah.
images are you uploading? What PDFs? That kind of stuff. And so, what we know is like, if you give these models really good context, they can like knock it out of the park, right? And so it's we've gone from like this prompt engineering to now it's like context engineering. It's like what all are you going to give it? Like if I give you a website layout and I give you these photos and I do this and I do that, and then I'm like, all right, and now your prompt is make it look good. Like it'll probably knock it out of the park.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. So many people are living in fear. For those that are actually living in fear, John, I can imagine you hear this all the time that people's like, "Oh no, it's not human centric. It can't do what a human does, and all this." And I completely agree. But to me, I feel like you could take an organization that is running with only 20 people, make it feel like it's running with 30 people, right? That's how good AI really is. And I think people are living in fear, and I say this all the time, but it's the beginning of the internet. It's the beginning of social media that those that are actually on board, they'll be very successful, and there's going to be those that are left behind, but it's not going anywhere. And to be quite honest with you, we've been using for AI for so many years, we just weren't calling it AI. So I'm very always
For
mindful. I
sure.
always like to tell people that like the resource, the tool, just happens to have a little bit of AI in it.
Yeah.
But truly, man, what is your thoughts on those that are living in fear? What do you tell them?
So there's an article. It was a little controversial article from someone who I know who's in Chicago, and they published something where like the line that really stuck out to me. They're like, all forward progress on these tools could stop today, and it would still be one of the most important things that's happened in my lifetime. It's like that's how powerful they are, and I think the part of the issue is that like there's people who looked at this 6 months ago, had a bad experience, it didn't like work out right for them, like it didn't answer the question right, and so they just stopped, and they haven't caught up and they haven't kept up with it. It's moving so fast, and things are new things that every week there's a new announcement from one of these companies about some new thing, and if you sort of stopped looking at it months and months ago, and you haven't caught up recently and looked at like the reasoning models and like a lot of the like visual stuff that these things can do and like the upload an image and make a website, you're missing out. Like you're kind of like you're it's not like, oh, your perspective is 6 months out of date. It's like 10 years out of date. Like that's how fast things are moving. I think on the fear side, I kind of go back to sort of like every, it's like the industrial revolution, the information revolution, like these sort of like we have these different time, these different periods where we have an inflection point in how people do work. And it's really important to sort of take a step back and be like, look, we're going to be changing the way we do work. How can I best adapt and like work within this versus sort of like we know that like fighting against it and trying to push back against it, rarely ever works out for the benefit. It may delay it for a few years, but ultimately it will overcome it, especially as people find them more useful. It does make an organization of 20 people feel like 30 people. And especially for like smaller organizations who you have a person who just left, you're a team of five, you like need to like catch up with the slack. Like it can really help in a lot of those cases.
Yeah, I love it. I think there's something that I actually heard yesterday. It was very interesting that this AI thought leader mentioned that he read an article by some university that says now when you tell your employer that you actually use AI, they almost look at you, you're incompetent because you used AI. And I'm like, what? If anything, you're more
Yeah.
creative, you're more smarter, you're more efficient. It is crazy the way that some people are actually looking at this, man. But I'm happy, John, that GoFundMe is looking at it in a brighter way, already
Yeah.
implementing some things. I love the idea of, hey, help me in a time of I got lost, right? Or emotionally was kind of drained, because that's what happens during those times. That you guys are finding ways to continue to help people through those, like empathy, right? Compassion. Like, look what you guys are able to do during those times that people are emotional. That you guys are still going to show up for them. Let them know, hey, we're here to kind of continue to guide you. What is it that you need? And with all that data of past titles, of past descriptions, that in a matter of seconds, milliseconds, that it will spit out something for you. So now I appreciate that. And what you're doing on the nonprofit side, man, like life really be like playing with you, John. The way that you just got
Yeah.
into some of these roles is so mind blowing. But that's what purpose looks like. Clearly you're chasing purpose. It was never a paycheck. You just realized there was a need. You wanted to help wherever you could, whether it was for your own needs or for the needs of others. So definitely appreciate you. Where can people find you, John? Where can people connect with you? Are you on LinkedIn? Any socials?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. I primarily use Blue Sky these days. but yeah, LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Most of my other stuff is private, just because when you're an executive at one of these companies, people will sometimes, anytime they're upset or mad about something, they'll sometimes
They
like
go.
reach out to
I
you
was like, yeah,
directly. And like, I'm always happy to like help people out when I can, but I don't need them looking through like photos of my kids on
hundred
Instagram and
percent. No, I
commenting on
agree.
it. So,
Blue Sky,
yeah, but
man.
Blue Sky,
What is Blue Sky? I've heard it before. For those that may not be
yeah.
know what Blue Sky is.
Yeah, so for those who use Twitter before it became X, Blue Sky is kind of like it's the text-based medium. So there's a race, in my opinion, to kind of like figure out like what's the replacement for Twitter and for a lot of people. And so for some people, it's still X. Like for certain people, for a lot of people, it became like Threads, which is the Instagram
Hmm.
meta version. For some people, they went to something called Mastodon, which I did for a while. I still do. But then for a lot of other people, it's Blue Sky. It's sort of it's sort of like in my opinion, kind of like the closest to the vibe that I was getting from Twitter back in the day of like the people I follow, the content I was looking for. So yeah, it's another one of those sort of endless scrolling text-based apps. So not like a TikTok video type thing, more of a text and links thing.
Lord, man, there's so many different ones.
It's
I'm
hard.
just trying to, get on LinkedIn and TikTok, and now you're telling me Blue Sky. I never got to
Yeah.
Twitter though. I was never a
Yeah.
Twitter type of person.
Well,
I still call it Twitter, even
feel
though people
very
call it
feel
X.
very happy you never got succumbed to Twitter. It was
Never,
a
man, never. Even Threads. Like I tried early on, but it gave me Twitter vibes, so I just didn't do it. So I am on
yeah.
Instagram, I guess. But
Yeah, I think it's all about like where do you feel that you're meeting your community? Where do you feel that you're like getting the right vibes, like what you want to get out of the product? And like I don't know, like if I tried something and I didn't like it, it's like all right, I don't like Threads. Like, I never really got into Threads, like to be honest. Like I tried it, like I followed a few
yeah.
things, but it just wasn't what I was going for. So
I hear you. With John, blind question time, man. Before we
yeah.
start to depart here, this one's pretty easy. It is what's your why? Why do you do what you do? Not only at the level of GoFundMe, but truly on the level of the organization and making sure that you're helping others that may be experiencing something that we still don't really have an answer for.
For me, it's kind of like a way of like because it's like weird because like a lot of ways I have like an imposter syndrome. It's like why am I in any way qualified to be the one doing this? But oftentimes I'll take a step back and be like I feel like I am good at it. I feel like the organizations I work with are doing good things. So like I ultimately want to feel good at the end of the day about what we're doing, even though sometimes it can be. Um, you can feel just awfully upset with like the state of the situation and the crisis and things like that. I want to feel that it's that what we're doing is the right thing, that like we're mission driven. I will say like I've never worked for an organization where the mission is so like everybody can repeat it. We help people help each other. Everybody knows it. They feel it in their bones that that's what we're doing at GoFundMe.
I love it, man. And I always feel like life is not about us. When your son gets a little older and really, starts to understand. I think your son is
He's
four,
six. Yeah,
six,
I have a
six.
6-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Because I remember you said it around the pandemic time. So I
Yeah,
was I was
yeah.
thinking about my daughter. Okay, so you have a six and
Yeah,
three,
yeah.
and we
He missed his first birthday with his family because his birth he
pandemic.
it was April.
I miss my 30th birthday. Okay,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
having a pandemic party. So literally, my wife kind of just decorated the house. And, this is when
yeah.
Zoom. Everybody's dressed
Did
up.
Zoom? Yeah, did it over Zoom. Yeah,
That
Zoom.
is
I remember
Zoom 30th.
Zoom Christmas and Zoom
Oh my
Thanksgiving
god,
and
I hated those. Um, but no, man, I think that it's not about us, right? It's about the next generation, and truly, what you're doing is impacting the next generation. And your kids will appreciate this, and obviously, you're leading by example. What it looks like to care for people, right? You kind of talked about that mission, and you're showing that, and your kids will continue to show that. So I thank you so much, John, for having this conversation with us today. And for those that are still watching, make sure that you guys go ahead and connect with John. And if you guys are thinking about maybe where can I give? Well, GoFundMe is a perfect place to go find something local
yeah,
at that,
yeah.
right? And I think that really opens doors, not for you to just give, physically with dollars, but to find out sometimes that there's organizations that are in your area that you don't even know exist. I think that's huge. I think you guys are more than just give, but allowing people to find resources as well, because I think that's all how it gets started. So, John, we thank you. My name is Efrain. This is John. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Laters.